Okay, problem 4, module 10 through 12, talks about a long-term construction contract, and we're going to talk about how to compute the revenue and the recognized profit, and we're even going to talk a little bit about IFRS. Okay, so let's see what we need. First of all, let's go through and read it. Build a baseball stadium for $330 million. Okay, that's those numbers there. Let's just write those in while we're here and move on. So that's the contract price. That's not going to change. That's contract. Once you write it down, yeah, it's done. And let's see. It says the expected completion date is April of 2015, hence the 2015 end date. The cost incurred and the estimated cost to complete are as follows. So cost incurred during the year, so we need the actual cost to date, so we need that, plus that, plus that. So year 1 we have 90 actual cost to date. Year 2 we have 160, which is 90 plus 70. 90 plus 70. And year 3, we have 205. So that's 90 plus 70 plus 45. So that's that line. So really a lot of this is just identifying the stuff we need and putting it where it's going to go. And then they tell us the estimated cost to complete are 160. And 40 and 0, which means they finished it. That's a good thing. So they'll go down here. So our estimated cost to complete at the end of the first year is $160,000. Our estimated cost to complete at the end of the second year of 40. And at the end of the third year, there are no estimated costs to complete because it's completed. So total estimated costs. Year 1 is 250, just those two added together. Year 2, it's 200, and that's okay. The prices will go up or go down. And at the end, it turns out that it was 205. That happens too. Okay, so it went down and it went up. Now, our estimated gross profit. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to take our estimated gross profit for this year is $80,000, 250 from 330, and we're going to multiply that by the cost incurred so far, and we're going to divide that by the cost that we estimate it to be altogether. So we are 90 250ths done the project. So we can recognize, and that works out to be 36%, by the way. So we can recognize 36% of the 80. That's the total estimated gross profit. We can recognize 36% of that, $28,880,000. And I'll do the same thing for the next year, okay? The next year we have spent 160 total. So we have 160 total over 200. That works out to be 80%. And we look at our estimated profit, and our estimated profit, we expect 230, or I'm sorry, we expect 330 in total revenue, and we expect our total cost to be 200. So our estimated profit is 130 million, and this is 80 million. Now, so here's the area where you can screw up. and it's common, people do it all the time. We take 80% times the 130. That's how much we're entitled to recognize. And that works out to be 104,000. But that includes 2880 that we recognized last year, so we need to subtract that out. We can't recognize that twice. So our gross profit to be recognized this year is 75.2 million. And that's the area, that's the thing that people forget to do, and that always screws with them. Okay, and the last year, there's not a whole lot of computations to do. The only thing you have to realize is that we have a total of 205 in total cost against 330 in contract price. So our profit, our total profit is 125, but we've already recognized 75.20 of that. So we have to subtract that from that, and we come up with 21. So we subtract the 75.20 from last year, the 28.80 from the year before, to give us the 21. So we have to make sure we take both. Now, to be honest with you, I would cheat. Last year we had 104. I would subtract that from 25 and be done with it. Either way, same answer. You're good to go. Okay. Now, part 2 asks us, how much revenue will we report? And then how much gross profit will we report? And we're going to go back to those numbers that we talked about before. But the revenue, year 1, and let me refer back, year 1 we have 36% done. In year 2 we had 80% done. In year 3 we're 100% done. So revenue reported for year 1 is 36% times the 330 million revenue contract price, and that's 118.8 million. Okay. Now year 2, we're at 80% of the contract price. And 80% of the contract price is 264. Minus what we already recognized last year, which is 118.80. You got to remember to take out whatever you recognized last year. So when we do that, year 2, we're going to recognize 145.20. Okay, it's the 264, the 80% of the contract price, minus what we recognized last year. And year 3 is basically the 330, because we're 100% finished. Minus what we recognized altogether. So that's the 118.8 and the 145.20. So we add those together and that comes up to 264. So we're entitled to recognize 330 minus the 264. Yes, that is that number. So we're entitled to recognize $66 million, year 2. So the things that you can forget to do, you can forget to take out the prior years. You got to always take out the prior years. If you don't, you'll recognize revenue twice, you'll recognize profit twice. It will not be nice, okay? And now it asks us to determine the amount of gross profit to be recognized in each of the 3 years using the completed contract method. Completed contract method. Let me rephrase that. The completed contract method. In other words, you don't do anything until the contract is complete. So we recognize 0 in year 1, 0 in year 2, and in year 3 we recognize all of the revenue for the completed contract method, which would be the 330 minus the 205, 125 million. Completed contract method. Okay, part 4 of this problem asks us, suppose we were under the cost recovery method as required by IFRS. Now the cost recovery method required by IFRS says that we recognize revenue up to the amount of actual cost, and then we pick up all of the gross profit or revenue in the last year. So we're going to have to go back to here and find out what the costs are, okay? And the cost in year 1 are 90, the cost in year 2 are 70, and the cost in year 3 are 90 and 70, and what was the final cost altogether? 205 altogether, okay? So that would be 170 in cost total. Just add those up. So year 1 we'll recognize revenue of 90 because that aligns with the costs that we've recognized. Year 2 we'll recognize costs of 70 and revenue of 70, and again we'll put the profit off. Notice what we did, okay? And in year 3, we estimate that we're going to pick up $40,000 more worth of costs. So we will recognize that. So that brings our total up to 170. And our costs are remaining 45, and that gives us our gross profit of 125 right there, okay? And last but not least, it says suppose the estimated cost to complete at the end of 2014 are 70 million instead of 40 million. In other words, the profits went down, the cost went up significantly. So at that point, at the end of 2014, we've got this. Let me take you back to those numbers. We're talking this year, right here. And specifically it says, suppose that was 40 and not, or 70, not 40. In other words, the cost went up 30 million. Yeah, that does happen. It doesn't make contractors happy when it happens, but it does indeed happen. So, let's see what happens there. And you're going to do it exactly the same. We have 160. That's still how much we've completed. The actual cost to date is 160. But now, the cost to complete are 70, not 40, okay? So that gets added to our total. So our estimated cost to complete are now 250 and 70. So that's 320. And that tells us that we're about 50% complete. Okay, we've already recognized 28.8 from last year. So when you do that, you have to subtract out, and it tells us that when we subtract that, so we take 50 minus the 28 from last year. We're only 50% complete. And keep a look that the costs are now going up to 320. So our revenue now is 330 minus the 320, so it's only 10 million. We've already recognized 2880. We're entitled to only 50% of 10 mil. So we recognize 2880. That's how much we've already recognized. We're only entitled to recognize 5 mil. So we have a 2380 loss. Because at this point we're only entitled to half of 10 million. Because our costs have gone up significantly, so our profit's gone down to 10 million. So we're only entitled to half of that 5 mil. We took 28, so we have a gross loss to be recognized of 2380. Pretty good overview of the various methods for accounting for long-term construction projects.